is the R point, or something around there, 0.0013 maybe. Um, what It's not near that right now. What are the arguments for and against why it would reach around there, um, around November? Like, I get the arguments why it should, but I don't understand the arguments why it would remain under that. Thank you.
I would just have to say that price can only be derived in certain directions because liquidity allows for people to buy and sell across those price ranges. When liquidity isn't at a certain price, it becomes too volatile to sustain those prices, and it'll fall back to where liquidity currently sits. And that's just pretty much as simple as that. If I saw liquidity that was being posted at those current prices that would allow for it to go up there, and then as the price went up, that people removed liquidity behind it so it couldn't fall back down, then I would say that we were already on that move. But you have to follow that and watch the liquidity as price changes move every day. And I've pretty much just seen the Hedron liquidity move ever so slightly throughout the few months and weeks. But for the last few days, it's pretty much just sat there. And
Okay,
the price keeps getting pulled back into the thickest part of it. So, yeah.
Okay, so you're of the opinion that it's not gonna go like extreme, it's not gonna reach near the R point, is that right?
I can't make that judgment because the things changed live. Like I said, like I'll sit here maybe 4 or 5 times a day and reload the page to see if liquidity is appropriating itself at a different range as soon as I see price move. Like the last 3 days, we've seen price actually move like up. So then I'm watching liquidity at that time live to be able to figure out what's going on live. To make predictions, I'm not a fortune teller type person, and I don't really do that type of stuff. So
I got
I
you.
just
I'm not looking. Yeah, I
yeah,
understand. I don't want
I
you to
do
speculate or like give
yeah,
financial advice for sure.
I can
Um,
deal with the facts and tell you what's going on. So I just kind of stay there, right,
yeah,
with
I just
reality.
want to, I want to get like I don't want to focus on the price. I want to focus on like the idea of why arbitrage would or would not hit. Um, because what if it is the case that it stays low like it is right now relative to where it could be, then what are the consequences of that come auction time?
People still have low, undervalued hedron that they can purchase on market to be able to get into the staking pools to increase their pool. Like there's advantages to having lower prices. If the price went up, there'd be people that'd be like, shit, I could have got a lot more back then than I can now. So while I do have this opportunity, I can get my paycheck every 2 weeks or every week or every month or whatever it is and still be able to play the game.
So all the HSIs will be on sale if the price remains relative, like within 50% of where it's at now, right?
Well, I mean, they're all going to be available for sale no matter what the price is.
Oh, because it can't reach above the arbitrage point. Is that your point?
You're talking about HSIs in the auctions, right?
Yes.
Like they're already in the auctions. They're going to be available for sale no matter what the hell the price is. If the price goes down on Hedron, then more Hedron will have to be used for the premium amount of hex that's in it. Like if I have a hex stake that has $300 of hex that's in it, and I know that it's going to start bid with like $24 worth of Hedron, and I'm okay with continuing to keep bidding up to the $300 of the hex that's in there until I say no, then the lower the price of the Hedron, it's going to take a lot more Hedron to get to $300. Or in the adverse, if hex price goes up, then the premium value of the hex that was in it, let's say that we went from 3 cents to 6 cents. Now the $300 where the hex is in there is now $600. So that means I'm going to have to burn $600 worth of Hedron to be able to win that bid or stop bidding on that particular HSI and move on to the next one. So instead of having to, lower the price of Hedron to get more Hedron to be burned, you can just increase the price of hex to have more Hedron burned. Or if they go opposite directions from each other, where hex goes up and Hedron goes down for some reason, then even more Hedron will have to be burned, which will actually cut down the supply. And over a certain period of time, that means it's going to be harder for people to be able to provide liquidity and stock the shelves, which makes it more rare, and potentially things that are more rare increase price. So if you know that less people have it in their hands, then there's less risk for the liquidity providers to move their assets forward to support prices. And so when there is a jump in price up, they won't wait as long. They won't wait 24 hours to go, is somebody going to sell back down into the thickest part of liquidity again? And it'll be a mistake if I moved my liquidity forward, because then everyone else had to move liquidity forward with them, right? You don't want to be the first guy that moves and then have the price go back down out of your range after you just moved your liquidity forward. And now it's back to where you just were, and you could have just done nothing and just waited for the traders to come in and push the price back down into your liquidity where you're making fees again. So all those things need to happen together to be able to have a sustainable price in the first place. And I do see that the market makers are smart enough to understand these things. And when the prices do suggest that it's willing to stay up there, then it'll be an easier time for the market makers and liquidity providers to move their assets forward and sell them for a higher price. They want to sell their assets for a higher price. Why wouldn't they? Just like you would want to, and I would want to, they want to too, but they don't want to create some sort of impermanent loss situation because they move too soon. So they want to have confidence that when the price does go up, that they're not going to have to put themselves in those types of situations, spend gas fees to move it, and all these other things that could have potential negative externalities in those moves. Now, after you get to burning so much hedron of the actual circulating supply, then less people are holding on to the hedron. More people are getting involved in staking up their hedron. So certain periods of time, not 30, 90, 180, 270, 360 days, reduces the sell pressure. So then maybe it wouldn't take 24 hours for liquidity providers to move their assets forward when they realize that there's less of a chance for someone to come sell it back down into the ranges that are currently there. So then they'll have more, it'll be easier for them to gain confidence to move those prices up. So maybe it wouldn't be the lead up to November 13th of the start of the liquidations as to like why prices would go up, but maybe because the fact that all these things are happening and less people actually have liquid hedron to be able to sell into the market causes for market makers to just cause for price to go up, because now they're saying that if you want to buy hedron, this is where we're selling it at, up here, not down where it used to be, but up here now. That's all it takes. Like if all the liquidity providers right now got together, like the gas stations do to manipulate prices, and actually decided to manipulate prices and took all of their liquidity off, meaning when you go to Uniswap and they're like, sorry, there's not enough liquidity to even purchase anymore, right? And then all of a sudden they go move it up to whatever the arbitrage price is, then the next buy that happens when Uniswap opens up and goes, oh, there's liquidity again, then it's going to go, the first person that made a buy is going to cause for slippage on that first buy, but that amount of slippage that they got, whoever did it, pushed the price all the way up into the liquidity that was now appropriated up higher than the current price is now. And that's exactly what would happen. It'd be extremely volatile where the price is now, and it would push the price all the way up to where it would currently be, where all the liquidity was at that time, just on any buys that would happen at that time. And that's just how it works.
Okay,
wherever support is where the price will be.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. I'm just trying to wrap my head around all this because there's like,
It's not
I
easy.
guess, yeah, I guess like I understand how markets function and how, liquidity providers set the price. Um, I'm just trying to think what's the consequence of the hedron, because I thought this was like a narrative that the hexahedron ratio of 0.0013 or whatever should be hit um come auction time, because that was the whole design that Alex wanted, was for this thing to be representative of a T-share.
Was that Alex that said that because of these auctions that this is exactly how I designed this, so that the price would go to a certain price at this price for that time and these things and stuff like that? Or was it a YouTube personality that people tend to respect that said maybe if this thing happened, then this could be a possibility of other things that happened? Which of the two was it?
I mean, I was around when Alex, like, he didn't, Alex isn't giving promises, of course not, of prices. Certainly, that's not my claim.
And you're talking
Um,
about a time that in a something where you made a statement about hedron price before Icosa even existed and before the liquidations things even happened. So it's not pertinent to the question in which you asked me that had to do with the liquidations. I just wanted to clarify that as well. Anything about hedron that was stated and Alex saying that if this was that, then if hex was this price, then hedron could be that price. I didn't want you to go there because I would stop you.
he never said it was guaranteed to happen, and I'm not saying that he said anything like that.
Mhm.
But there was a design intention that um there would, like, the ceiling price would be at a certain level, and that's because once you get past that, there's like arbitrage that can happen, and that would bring the price back down. Like, there was a ceiling price that it could hit, and um from my understanding, not his, auctions, auctions and staking both facilitate, well, increased auctions due to Icosa in the first place. Um, Combined with the staking, kind of speed up the natural process of where I believe, not him, my words, I believe the hedron price should be.
I would probably, yeah, I would probably be like on the same side as you, but I wouldn't nail it down to November, right? I wouldn't be like that, regardless of anything else. Like when Icosa didn't exist yet, and it was just Hex and Hedron, like we had like speculative talks that it would take 5 to 6 years to be able to appropriate a price where people would be able to use the borrow function, like actually be able to use the borrow function.
Right.
Uh, and now, since these other things exist, like I would have cut it down to maybe 2 years, maybe. I don't know. I don't really actually know, but I'm going to go less than 5 to 6 years at that point in time.
Right, I agree.
And then, like,
So,
the narrative of like, oh, November and all these things and stuff like this, like, I don't know. Like, it could, I guess. Like, if there was enough people that were like, oh shit, I need to get involved with this and like do these things, like, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I can't go much further than that.
right, I hear you. So let's say hedron price is well below the ceiling price. I don't know why we don't call it a ceiling price. I guess it's the same thing, ceiling arb point. Um, if it is the case that um we're not close to the ceiling price, then all that happens is extra, like, let's say we're 10x away from the ceiling price. Um, then you would expect 10 times um the amount of hedron being burnt.
Yes.
And so I just feel like, yeah, I guess it doesn't have to happen November, you know, 13th or 12th or whatever it is, but like eventually it's going to reach that point. I'm just trying to get a sense of like how that's going to play out. But yeah, no price talk, no speculation.
I believe the
Alex is
same.
on. I'm not trying to, like, do
I know.
anything. Like,
I know. I just wanted to keep it on this on the right path, I guess, right?
Guys, guys, just give it 7 to 10 to maybe 8 years, and we will all ejaculate from hedron.
Well, like generally for like me at least, like assets that I speculate with, like I give them like okay, so let's say you got a college team that you really really like, and you get a brand new coach, and you know that within their someone's college career that they're going to probably be in school for 3 to 4 years. So if you already had seniors that already learned the playbook from the old coach and juniors and sophomores that had already learned the playbook from the old coach, that you're going to have some sort of recruitment process of new kids, the new freshmen that come in that are now learning the new coach's playbook. And they're fresh, right? They don't have this other playbook and these other things that they were taught to now they have to forget and learn this whole new thing like the seniors and the sophomores and the juniors do. So you give that coach 3 to 4 years of recruitment process to be able to get his team in line before you're going to have some sort of expectation from the team to actually start winning. To say that you had a good coach, then you can maybe have those types of expectations. I kind of do the same thing with cryptocurrency in a totally different light, but still give it a chance, like 2, 3, 4 years. Cryptocurrency is like still kind of a teenager, right? It's kind of a baby. So 2 to 3 years is probably like a really good position to have for your hold to see like what this thing really's got. So I would at least, that's what I'm doing, right? So even with Hedron, we're like 5 to 6 years. I'm kind of like, well, you can as long as you make hex stakes, then you can mint it for free. And I not only minted it, I bought it off market too, especially at the low at 6 zeros and like a 2 or a 3 or some shit. Like I bought for sure. And I'm glad that I did, right? Because now that we have all this stuff, like it gives me even more of an incentive to hold, right? And the fact that we speculated these things were going to happen in 6 years, but now it's just happening sooner. Like I'm super happy, right? To see that the community is falling behind it and like actually picking things up and learning stuff and educating and like getting involved. And I mean, it's great. It's great to see. So I got high hopes and a lot of confidence in this ecosystem. Pulse chain launching too is like shit. You might have to really do your research and be really careful how you move around in there, because I assume that there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of developers that come out of the woodworks that are just going to try to do everything they can to get your Pulse out of your hands. I don't know about Pulse X or the rest of it, but specifically the network token Pulse, because that's the thing that's going to have the majority of the liquidity and the majority of the value, and they're going to try to get it from you. Whether they steal it, whether they tell you a Fugazi, fantastic, beautiful fucking thing over here and it wasn't true, or whatever it is, you got to be careful. But we don't have to worry about some of these assets that have launched on Ethereum with Hex and have all these other things like Maxi. And I find that those, when Pulse Chain launches, that they're going to have the highest opportunity to come to parity with the prices, because you already have a price. Why would you suggest that it needs to be any other price when you already know that this is what people are accepting for the price to be? So there should be support in those ranges, especially in the V2, because then people can just buy it up to there and then they go, no, we already know that this is what the price is. And then you can start doing those things. Hell, even Hedron might go past what its current price is on Pulse Chain and go straight to the ceiling, straight to the arbitrage point, because people would actually want to be able to utilize those things at cheaper fees. Really pretty much Hedron and that whole Icosa thing, and even Hex, which we didn't know then, Hex was like kind of needed Pulse Chain, needs something like Pulse Chain. So I think that Alex took those things into consideration. Yes, these things are going to come out on a network that's particularly expensive when it comes to gas, but when Pulse Chain comes out, all these buttons that you can push are not going to mean a damn thing to you, because it ain't even going to cost you anything to do any of it. And you'll be more willing to participate, more willing to do everything. So I do see a lot of value in the Pulse Chain side of stuff. So
hey, Hexecutioner, I got a question regarding this. I keep forgetting to ask you this. So all the yield that we've been accruing all this time on Ethereum chain, the yield's gonna show up also on Pulse chain?
Yes. Yep. It's
Awesome.
all gonna get copied over, everything you have. Your stakes, your yield, your liquid, your everything.
Alex is the guy to kneel before.
Yeah. He knew what he was doing. And I think that some of the other developers that are now like, we have a good product, we're tired of waiting for Pulse Chain, let's just launch on Ethereum and get people liquidity, and they can do whatever they want with the stuff that they have. And they're even setting it up with a totally different contract so that some of those things won't get copied over, because you already have a sacrifice set for Pulse Chain. Like it wasn't actually supposed to be on Ethereum at all. And they're figuring out ways to be able to appropriate it so that they can just launch it and get people liquidity. And if they want to bring it to a chain on a bridge, then they can. And they can bridge over those assets and then swap them for whatever their assets that they want at that time. So,
Right. It's actually smarter for them to do that to work out the kinks
yeah.
too. Like, I don't know if you, one project that's pretty impressive on how they're, the founder, B&B Pot, like he's faced a bunch of challenges right now and he keeps providing solutions. So it's good to see him work through that. And that's what we need. Like, that's something you can stand behind are these founders that actually are providing solutions to any challenge that occurs.
I heard people were pretty excited over on Binance Chain for that B&B Pot thing. That's a casino, right?
Right. Yeah, it's really cool. I like it. I wish I sacked for it and I wish I would have sacrificed more. Because I mean, come on, we all gamble every single day of our lives. The second we wake up, life's a gamble.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about B&B Pot. I did like kind of see some stuff. I saw the front end and things like that. I'm not really sure what the negative externalities of it are to see what the risks are. But yeah, like you said, everything is a gamble. Everything is a risk. There's always something that you have to do, and if you do nothing, then you take no risks. Then there probably are no rewards. If your level of fuck around is 0, then your chances to find out is also 0.
Right. Well, and what's cool with that project is he does have the staking ability. So like if you just want to be a part of that, and not be a part of the gamble, but benefit from the gambling, you have that, or you can play it. So it really is just a, choice of which route you want to go. So there's multiple options for that one.
What do you earn? BNB?
Yeah, it's BNB, or it's there's several tokens you can earn. Whatever's whitelisted. So when it comes to Pulse Chain, it'll be like there's already like a Hex Roulette, Pulse Chain, Pulse X. Yeah, there's all kinds of things. And right now, I think in the group, it's really cool is he does allow us to kind of the community to vote like, hey, here's a project we would like on to be whitelisted so that we can sacrifice that for the bet. And then whoever wins the pot wins whatever was for the specific game, the jackpot. Whoever, like, you can put cake in BNB or the actual native token to the game. And then whoever wins that pot gets all of it. So that's just one of them.
Day one was kind of funny because I was watching a couple of the chats that were happening with people that were winning. So like somebody that had a chance of like less than 6% to win the pot won, and they only had BNBP that they put into the pot for their winnings. And when they won BNB, they won BNBP, they won all sorts of other assets, and they didn't even realize that it had happened for like 30 or 40 minutes later. And then when they looked at their assets that they'd won, they freaked the fuck out because they realized that they spent like less than $100 and they ended up winning like damn near almost $4,000 or some shit like this in the pot. It was pretty impressive. Even I was like, huh. I don't participate in Binance stuff. I don't. And even I was like, fuck, maybe I need to now. Maybe I should go check this out. I haven't yet, but I like that it's, causing these good things to happen.
Well, I think it's good to educate yourself on what's out there, The biggest thing that I always say about this community and what drove me even here is we're continually educating. Like, I know a lot about the Polygon chain now. I know about, obviously Pulse Chain, ETH. The one I can't put my damn hands on and figure out, though, is ETH Fair. And I don't think I want to, but I want to extract. Like, I'm actually curious what you think about the Wattses with those other chains.
I don't know. I don't really know why Ether exists, honestly. It's tough for me too. Because like my general understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, any of you guys that might know more about this than I do. But when the merge happened and ETHPOW obviously had the miners go that direction, but my understanding is that ETHFair is a copy of the POS network. Why the hell would we need that? It doesn't even have miners. They do the same. It's might as well just go participate on the POS chain and just pay the higher fees like we normally do, because that ETHFair, yes, it's less fees, and it's a proof of stake network. And that's where I'm saying, correct me if I'm wrong, because my understanding is that ETHFair is a proof of stake network, not a proof of work network.
Well, execution. Well, let's be honest. I mean, the guys from Tron, I think, is responsible for this. And just look at Justin Tron history about doing dumb shit like that, empty chains, just to grab liquidity and push us out.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go with it. It's like it doesn't have the liquidity. It needs to get the liquidity, and then maybe it'll have some backing. But who's going to extract that liquidity? And then you just kind of answered that for me. So yeah, I guess.
ETHFair is it is ETH hash. It is being mined.
Yeah.
So it is a proof of work.
It is proof of work. It is proof of work, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Anything Justin touches, I stay far away from.
Hey, listen, I have tried to figure out, like, that's one thing that I look at now is like any project, like what's the in and what's the out. Like, that's great. You want to hodl. Like, I get that. And I want, I have that too. But I need to know that we have an in and an out. And with this one, ETHFair, I can't find the out. You can put in, but you can't pull out. And I think you can going off a central, but I don't want to go off a central exchange. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, perhaps maybe the ploy here might be just to attract the dum-dums who may who may speculate in that, might speculate that returns might be there and not recognizing they might be the liquidity just by participating blindly.
My understanding was that allchainbridge.com, and I haven't done this myself, guys, but what I was told by Jawa was that allchainbridge.com, when you switch to ETF, that gives you an opportunity to get on and off of the chain there, that they support ETHPOW, ETHPOS, and ETHFair.
Yeah, well, it says that. But there's something, like, I've been playing with it, trying to figure it out. And ETH does, just like changenow.org, I think it is. They do ETH. There's a couple of solutions for that one. What's weird is actually ETH lists us at, I think they're listing us, the Hex, as a central. I gotta look at what their image was. They posted something the other day, and it was like they had Hex listed as a DEX or something. But ETHFair, it's messed up. Let's just say that. I guess I will maybe reach out to Java to find out what the minimum to come out, because Allbridge wouldn't allow me to do it.
Did it say that it needed like so many transactions to happen on, or so many blocks to happen before it could be confirmed, like 3,000 or something like that? Or did it just not have an availability at all?
Yeah, it just said no availability, and I'm looking online. It looks like for this one pool, there's 1,200 miners online for it right now. So they're definitely, they're pushing some good cash on. I just haven't seen anybody mess with the Wattses over there, like with burning. It seems pretty, they've only done a couple. So I was just curious if everyone's just taking the stance of leave it alone, and if it ends up being something later, then figuring it out. But I kind of wanted to just figure it out now.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm more of like just leave stuff on it and not do too much with it. It's not a whole lot to worry about in the first place. So if it ends up being something, then it'll have support with those types of things to be able to cross bridge stuff. And when those things happen, it would probably suggest that there's more support for it. And then maybe I'll look into it a little bit deeper. But for now, I'm just going to kind of leave it alone. But yeah, I noticed the same thing, is that the Wattses aren't really getting burned over there either. But like liquidations are going to happen too, I would assume, right? Since the front end of Hedron.pro is, you can point it in that direction on both networks, on the other two new networks. When he does his update for the front end, like, is that going to point in those directions? I don't know. I do not know. But I would be on the, since Alex already did do it once, I would assume that you may have the availability of participating on the auctions that are happening over there as well, if you were so inclined, I suppose.
Can I ask you guys a question? I've been trying to play catch up with all of the postings you guys do, but having two kids is a little rough at times in a different time zone. But Execution, I also want to say thank you from the Bahamas. I really appreciate your insight, because it's your insight that made me kind of understood what Alex did in terms of his approach and philosophy for developing this system. Because if it wasn't for you, I think I would have screwed myself and missed everything. So thank you for that. My question is, I've managed to accumulate 1 billion hedron in terms of just dollar cost averaging and hustling and saving. My only, I guess, ignorant, I guess, I don't know. Maybe I just don't know enough, but I've read all the ceiling prices theory and price movement and price action. I understand TA quite a bit, quite good at it. My only question is, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what's a safe point, or enough to stop worrying that you need to accumulate more to have some sizable bag if you need to liquidate something in the future, to say, okay, I can secure my family with maybe 300 grand, maybe in the next 2 years the price moves in my favor without tearing up the whole bag. Now, how are you guys playing the price action and securing profits along the way?
I guess it would depend on when your entry positions were on your overall average and where it ends up. You want to take profit is kind of what you'd want to look at.
Okay.
And it's going to be specific to the individual.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Like if I let's say I purchased 500 million hedron when it was 6 zeros and a 2, and it was only, I don't even know what the hell the price that would have been, $500 or some shit like that, maybe. And then today, now that would be close to $2,000 or something like that. Maybe I would, if I had a bunch more hedron previous to that one specific purchase of that 500 million, I might be okay with extracting it after it's done a 5x, right?
True.
So maybe I wouldn't be, but maybe I would. I guess it depends on the individual.
Yeah, I think the best advice in regards to that is to plan your trade and trade your plan, because most people suffer from the bull market in the sense of euphoria, and then they'll change their plan and they'll become greedy and not take enough profits on the way up and become more absolutism in their feeling toward their bag. And you can definitely hold longer into the future as long as you're taking out percentages like 10%, 15% at certain X factors.
True. Yeah, because I started to get concerned. I think I was hitting an echo chamber. I'm saying, oh my God, this thing can do, if it only does 10% of what Hex did before, that would be significant. I'm like, hold on, you're not making much sense, because you don't know what causes the price action to move in the long run, what's driving things and how things will play out. Because I don't know what it looks like in America, Europe right now. The Caribbean, the outlook looks horrible, bro. I mean, I don't know what to even say. I don't think we even measure our GDP right above now, to be honest, how bad it looks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the world's gonna end, and I think that you know, that the narrative that's strong and loud right now is a typical narrative, albeit a little bit more extreme than normal, in order to shake people out of their holdings. You know, kind of like that, the idea that they want our crypto kind of thing. And so they're going to use psychological, you know, they're going to move the price down in order to shake people out of their positions.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wish I had bought more Hex the other day. That was around 3 cents in play. I think, oh my God, I wonder if you can go a little bit lower, just a little bit more. Now I'm paying the price.
Yeah, the same thing. The same thing with like what Rich just said about in the bull market, where people get a little bit greedy and they maybe not take profits when they should have. In the bear market, it can do the same thing with you when you're like, well, it already went down this much. Maybe I'll just wait to buy, and maybe it'll come down here, and then the price goes up, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah, but if it
And
keeps going up, and it's like, oh, I wish I hadn't sold.
Yeah.
thing is, I
You
think,
just
like,
don't know, man, for sure. You just don't
I'm
know.
looking at, yeah, absolutely. I'm looking at the key, I think, is to create a profit-taking plan to where whatever the price does at any moment, like wherever the quote top is, even though it could be a local top, you're okay with it. So like I'm looking at mine right now, I'm like, okay, just for example, like at a 10x, I'm taking 10%, leaving 90. At the next 5x, which would then be a 50x in total, I'm taking another 10%. And then that then leave another 90%, and then the next 2x I'm taking 25%. So it's like, and you can see, like, you can write that down and actually do all the math and see what your number is at the end of, say, 1000x, and you can compare that to having an absolutism kind of philosophy and not selling anything until you hit that 1000x. And it's like, okay, what's the difference? And that difference, that cost of the difference, is basically risking off. And it's worth it because it also gives you emotional health through the volatility.
Yeah, and your wife don't kill you either.
I've had to learn this lesson the hard way. So, you know, it's a good thing to take profits, a little bit of profits on the whole way up, in my opinion.
Yeah. One of the contradictions I'm running into with that philosophy, I think I'm taking your approach. I just haven't figured out the percentage in my mind, but I think I'm DCAing and for the long haul, just on the Icosa side, as I get a little bit of cash, buy some more, stake it, buy some more, stake it, knowing that I'm extending this stake. But to me, what my ignorance, the ignorance I'm playing on with Icosa per se is the dual yield is just so tempting, and I have no idea what Icosa would be in the future. It may be a long term play in terms of price appreciation, but just the ability to build Hedron and probably factor that in if you take a loan on the Hedron at the top on the other side, probably if you factor that in as a payback option. Maybe I'm overthinking it. I don't know.
Sounds right. I mean, execution, you mentioned that, how that can be considered almost like a you know, you take a loan out on Hedron, and then you know, that's almost like acts as like a short, right? What was that you were mentioning? Execution.
So if Hedron was to have a spike up in the price, and you knew that it went out of the liquidity range to have support by the liquidity, so you knew there's going to be a pullback, and before the pullback happened, you took the borrow out on the Hedron that you had, and then price pulled back down, you'd have to pay back less Hedron on the borrow to cover it, and you'd end up with liquid Hedron in your pocket. So you can use that to short the market.
All right. Question on that approach right there. Would you, when you take that borrowed position, at any point in time, do you lock up anything in stable coin to say, okay, I have profits? Or do you just stay in the Hedron the entire time and just play for the difference?
I mean, until you paid back the borrow with less Hedron, then you would hold on to the hedron. I wouldn't sell it. I wouldn't do anything with it until after you make the borrow, you take the hedron, you wait for price to go down, and then you pay it back with less hedron. And then now you can do what now you okay. So when you take the borrow, it locks your HSI. So then you can unlock it by paying it back. So if you can borrow 1 billion hedron and then pay back 800 million to be able to cover the borrow again, and then end up with 200 million extra hedron in the end, and then unlock your HSI, have your HSI, and then gain 200 million hedron in the process of you just doing that, wouldn't you do it?
Hell yeah, hell yeah. If now I've been to your school and been tutored to do it. Yes.
Yeah. Actually, I learned this from Alex. This is Alex Game's theory, like way back in February, or maybe even before that, because there was like a 60-day or a 30-day, like it got pushed back. I think it was supposed to launch in January, but instead it ended up launching in February. So we were actually involved in the chat, in the public chat, in November of the year previous. And we're talking to Alex about all the game theory and all the stuff. And he had mentioned that himself.
Alex is probably one of the most brilliant dudes I've seen in this space for the past 2 years. When I watch a few of his interviews, I'm like, this dude is the most humble, smart person I've seen in the entire space. I mean, he is the polar opposite of Richard. I mean, Richard is a brilliant guy. I've learned a lot from Richard. But oh my God, I have to cringe when I listen to Richard because, I mean, I guess personality is just so polarly opposite of what I am. But wait, Alex is God's sent one. I really appreciate him. Do you guys ever see, like, what's his next move on how he's going to evolve the Hedron Icosa space? I heard him did something the other day. He was talking about his past history about tokenizing mortgages. Like, wow, that's a wicked play. I wonder if he ever would do that in his little ecosystem, extending the utility of the token set.
I think Alex's point of view on whether he was going to expand the ecosystem any further past Icosa was that he was pretty happy with where it sits. Now, that could be another move where he is working on something and he was just putting himself in the position to make sure that he didn't give anybody expectations of what he was doing. And that could have been like, oh, well, I changed my mind later, right? Like I thought of this and I did this too. So who knows? Who knows what could happen? Or somebody else comes along and builds on top, right? It's hard to say, but yeah, I think that a lot of people are really interested in those things, like how to be able to tokenize like deeds and ownerships of property, um, deeds and ownership of land, maybe even insurance, right? Like being able to provide insurance and things like this too. Um, I think it gets a little complicated. I think that there's some added risk. And exactly how they intend on doing it is beyond me. But, maybe it'll take a bunch of people to get together and put their minds together to figure out how they can do it and make an advantage of it without having too many negative externalities.
Hey, what's your take on those NFTs that Power City are doing with those boxable? Supposed to be kind of like equivalent of a deed or whatever, or something. I don't know much, but just hearing, stuff here and there. Have you heard about it?
Well, I mean, kind of like way back in the day when Pulse Chain was first launched, the guys that are now the ones that are making Power City were in a private chat, and they were always interested in property and real estate and like high valued ones, the ones that are on rivers and like that are in good locations and things like this. And they would pinpoint them all over the world, like actually have a world map and like be like, this is the one and have the address and this is this and have the address for whatever. And they were always on this mentality of trying to get something into crypto that brought you into the real world when it came to ownership of property. And I haven't really been like looked into it further. I think even they are like still trying to figure it out themselves. So I don't know. Maybe you know more about it than.
I saw that thing in Vegas when I went there to their party, and I mean, I don't know. The picture looks cool, but I just was not too impressed. You know, when I like actually touched it, I went inside. I mean, it's okay, but I think it's a little bit overhyped. But however, you know, they say there's like fucking 3 years waiting period to get on the list to get one of those. Um, I just I just don't know. I guess
I
for
get
like as far as
as
from
far
like
as
a real
like
estate point of view.
Are you speaking about the metaverse thing that they have going on and being able to
No, no,
buy?
no. The boxable, those you know like tiny homes that they actually
Yeah.
the companies from Vegas and they're like delivering to your site. You know, you're supposed to have like
Those look nice.
on the pictures, yeah. But honestly, I don't know. I would prefer like log house or something. You know, it's just who knows. I mean, if you lived in it for let's say months and tested it on a different, you know, like weather conditions, then maybe you could tell. You know, but it's okay for like a summer house to me. But like a real house,
Yeah.
I don't know.
All
What's
right,
the
I
price
can
of them?
chime in a little bit. I know as far as like the utility of an NFT, I think there's huge potential there for holding like titles and like holding you know those types of documents. And I think that maybe that plays into all of this that you guys are talking about.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was. I think this is probably gonna be a good play, but yeah, I mean I was just talking about this boxable thing, you know, itself. So yeah, you can build a whole bunch of nice things, you know, if you stack them up, you know. But you know, it just goes up in price. You know, the bigger you want it, you know, it's not gonna cost you, you know, like 60 grand. That's just one
Yeah,
box.
I think
But
I
if you
think the
want
product
something,
market fit is for areas that you know, quick housing like that where maybe it's really expensive to build housing and it's more of like a temporary thing or something that you don't need permits for or you know, something along those lines. Or just already finished, completed, right? So maybe where you live, the labor is really expensive and you
yeah,
have
you know,
something that you can just, you know,
they say
basically
you can even do
open it
like
up.
Section 8 with it. You know, if you got it, you can rent it out.
So
Supposedly, you know,
I
the
think for
governments are approving it.
like so I think that's the product market fit is just like affordable housing, you know, that's pretty high quality, but smaller, you know, not quite tiny home size, right? But so yeah, I mean, for those of us that are in crypto and maybe we'll have more funds, I like as far as like kit homes, there's some cool ones that are like cedar kit homes that are basically all pre-cut and you just bolt them together and they're really high ceilings and they have big beams and stuff. But that's kind of what I was looking at. Like all pre-done, you know, you basically just bolt them together and it's all high quality stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I
I
mean, I'm thinking maybe I'll
that
hold one of those NFTs that are probably
I heard something
worth.
about XLM holding what was it? It was some sort of title or something. But basically legal documents, right? That like as an NFT potentially, maybe that's what it was, is that like just the action of how it works like on the blockchain, like it there is like actually a huge use case there. And these are like, you know, everything's gonna be shifting over, right? So like all these different aspects of value um are eventually gonna be on the blockchain.
I'd hate for them to figure it all out and then have some big entity come in there and copy paste all their stuff and then put so much money into it that it doesn't even matter that they did anything and they just appropriate all their hard work into their centralized fiat legacy
Yeah,
entity.
yeah. These fucking vultures.
Yeah, because that shit's complicated, and they may be like, it's not worth it for us to put all the work into it, and then have these guys that know what they're doing go do it all for them, and then just steal it all from them.
Could they do some sort of licensing, kind of like the V3 liquidity?
Yeah, but all they'd need to do is, like, since it's not going to be open source, and technically at that point legally you can't just copy it, you can understand how it works and then just make it different, and then
Right.
just be like, ours is better than yours, and then promote with your billions of dollars to people go get yours instead, where these guys don't have $1 billion to do all the marketing for it.
Amazon will take it over.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I just worry about those
The-
types of things. But, I don't know.
I like the analogy yesterday in regards to like how Amazon kind of like absorbed all the like .com value, and that crypto's kind of set to do, you know, after things are discovered, right? Like that's kind of the future in 10 years. So it's like, well, what are the projects that could potentially do that? And I think Hexhedron and Icosa absolutely are in a good position to, you know, be the last man standing, the shining
Yeah,
city on the hill.
as long as we all like become rich, right? And then we all like get the money and the availability to be able to do the marketing to compete with the other people, then yeah, I believe so too. Because that's kind of how Amazon did it. Instead of having monopolies, they just went and bought out every competition that they had and told them to go F themselves, go somewhere else with your bullshit.
Yeah, they're gonna kidnap fucking Alex or something, man. Like Goldman Sachs motherfuckers.
No, I think
We need to create a protection or something for you.
Well, I mean, it's immutable. Like, even if something happens to Alex, like, the stuff's still going to operate the way that it is. It's just that, as far as the marketing, that's up to us to do.
yeah, I
Right?
think
There's
that
some centralized marketing firm that we have.
absolutely. I think the incentive is kind of built in, right? When you have those types of gains and your life is completely changed, you can't help but want to go help everyone in your immediate, you know, onboard people, right? But I suppose, you know, the reach has to be further than just onboarding our local community and our local friends and family and associates and whatnot. But yeah, I think it's kind of ingenious how the marketing is incentivized simply from human psychology and the need to help people when you have something really good that you found, you know?
Like Crypto Sparbuck coming over to the United States and touring all over the United States and teaching people how it works and onboarding all sorts of people. Like, that is kind of like a centralized marketing thing that we have, I guess, in the Hex ecosystem for that. If we have more people doing those types of things because, they got 1,000x or a 5,000x or, whatever, and they don't have to work anymore and they're just bored, they're like, you can go pump your own bags by just traveling around the world, teaching people how it works, bring people that can
Right.
speak multiple languages and things like that.
And understanding that it's a completely fair monetary system, I think that's a huge part of it, right? Like that's why I'm really excited to teach people about it, because I really do think it solves the biggest problem, and it is the most fair money that's ever been created.
And then maybe we can even turn a profit, right? Like, in a certain sense, people they want exposure to crypto because they don't really understand it. And we could be the direct reason why they have exposure into crypto to what we're teaching them about, like Hex and Hedron and Icosa and Maxi and the other stuff that's involved with us. And whatever exposure to crypto that they get is whatever we're exposing them to, and that's what they're going to learn, right? Like, we all know that you can't go learn about 15,000 altcoins that are on there, and most of them are all garbage, right? Like, if we have this exposure to this is what I do with the legacy finance guys that I go talk to whenever I decide that I want to do some onboarding and I want to go talk to hedge fund investors and things like this. It's pretty, as long as you just stick to the numbers, that you're already winning, right? You're like, well, 38% APY. What did you guys get this year off of other people's money? 9?
Exactly.
You be? And they're like, well, what do you mean 38%? Well, this is how it works. Like, as soon as you get to that point, your 10-minute conversation that they're like, yeah, I'll give you 10 minutes of my time, turns into an hour-long conversation of all these other things, because now they're interested. They have a lot of conversations. They're already busting out the cigars. They're already busting out the alcohol, and they're already ready to party. And they're like, this is going to be awesome. And they're like, yeah, you haven't even got to the good stuff yet. We were just told you numbers. Like, we don't care. Here's my money. And you're like, okay, well,
Hey, I had that experience with my fellow driver, man. I just started telling him we were like stop at one of the places there. Guy from my company, and he's just like bitching about fucking legacy systems, how he got fucked by Goldman Sachs and stuff. He had some business. He's like, this fucking crypto thing, it's kind of cool, but I don't know. I was like, so I started telling him about hacks, just it's simple. And it took me like probably more than half an hour to get him going, and he says, "Oh yeah, that's cool. That makes sense. So send me some links, send me the website and all this stuff." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." So let me play with it. I'm like, "Yeah, let me know, man. Anytime, just give me a call. I'll tell you what's up. You know how to do this." And this guy wouldn't fucking call me. And then I meet him again like a month later. He's just like, "Man, I'm sorry I didn't call you back and shit, but I look at this stuff and I'm way too fucking dumb for this shit." I'm like, "Man, I'm fucking dumb too. But, I learned the basics. I know how to do this." It's like, no, man, I'm way dumber than that. No, I'm scared. I'm too dumb for this. I'm like, "Well, okay, man. Well, I'll see you in 3 years. We'll see how you like it if I show you ching ching, motherfucker."
that's what a lot of people were doing with the Staker app back when they had like the first Hex meetup things, right? They're like, look at this, like just showing everybody their Staker app. And everyone gets all hyped up, and other people come along and they're like, what's that? And then everybody's like mobbing this person with like, oh my God, you got to get involved. Don't learn anything. You don't even need to know a damn thing. Just go buy the stuff and hold on to it. It's going to be great. And it's like, oh man, oh geez. And then like the bear market hits and everyone's like losing their fucking minds. And then the bull market will happen again. And then those same things will happen again. So like onboarding, like now is like you have to know people do want education, they want confidence, they want these things in a bear market. So like being able to garner a certain amount of time from somebody to listen is kind of tough sometimes. You kind of need to know what to say and how to say it and get them hooked in so that they can give you some more time. But during a bull market, like just shit, you don't have to do much really, honestly. People just
That's the hard part, is because especially like once it's confirmed we're halfway through a bull market, like I'm taking a vow to not onboard anyone.
I'm probably gonna have to do the same thing too. But I will say that in my opinion, the more wealthy of the people that I've onboarded, they don't give a fucking shit about the bear market. They don't care. Like there are some of the few people that actually call me and be like, "What's happening with the price?" They don't even know what the price is. Like maybe like 6-7 months later when we meet up at a bar to have like watch football games or some shit like this and not even be there to like talk about finances and stuff, like maybe somebody will come over and be like, "How's everything going?" And I'll be like, "Here, look at this." And they're like, "Oh shit, everything's doing pretty good, I see." I'm like, "Really?" And they're like, "Yeah, this is like, look at everything else." And I'm like, "I don't even have to explain this to you." I'm like, I get it. And then they move on while they're handing me a beer for free or some shit.
Yeah, maybe that guy was like just he was burnt, on whatever investments he had before. So he was like, very reluctant to, putting more money, into something completely new. But, we'll probably meet him again in the future.
Yeah.
We'll see how he reacts to that.
And then he'll have the "I'm too late" mentality, and you're like, fuck, you just don't get it, do you?
Man, it really is just so apparent that you just can't save people from themselves.
That's why I said, a couple days ago and yesterday, just get out on the fucking street with the baseball, threaten their life, and force them to buy hacks. And they can buy Icosa too, just don't tell them to stake it.
I tend to go for the less how should I say it? I'm trying to conserve my energy, so what I tend to do is like kind of throw seeds out there and then go check on the seeds and find the ones that have been nurtured a little bit and let the ones that haven't been wither away, and then help those that look like they are ahead of the pack.
Well said by a farmer. I bet your crops look beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I've been row cropping, but that's really what I really enjoy doing is like working with soil and yeah, like preparing seed beds. There's just something, it's almost like sand sculpture, like the Buddhist monks with the sand art that like as soon as they're done, they destroy it kind of thing. That's kind of how I am with my dirt. Because it's just for a minute there that it's all perfect.
But we want to cultivate craps, quote unquote, investors that thrive and flourish like weeds.
Yeah, let them call themselves, like kind of like the analogy of, the IQ test with the vaccine.
Almost everything these days is a relevant type of IQ test, I guess, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose life is, right? It's just a big test, and it's like, yeah, if you're thinking wrong, you're gonna make wrong decisions, and then your life will become not as good as if you were cultivating proper thinking habits and having that daily routine create your future for the better.
I'd have to agree. Like take less time being manipulated and more time educating yourself to make well-informed decisions.
I kind of like what you said yesterday where you're like, yeah, I didn't watch Hexo, I don't know anything about that. It's like it's kind of, not that you have anything against them, it's just that it's almost like like once you feel like you got a good grasp on the truth, you don't really need to seek so much anymore. And instead, like there's a lot to be said about patience and just kind of letting things come to you once you figured things out and not forcing them, like the shiny object syndrome type of thing that's occurring.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I see there's entertainment for that because they have fun doing what they're doing. But yeah, exactly. Like, I'm no longer trying to like garner any more education from outsides. Well, honestly, I didn't really garner any education from outside sources. I did it. I bought Hex. I staked it. I got involved by looking at the layman's guide with all the math and the stuff that's there, and like, oh, well, this all makes sense. Well, how can I extrapolate that to me and why it's important to me? And then that was my education. And then maybe if I had heard something from other people or came at a Telegram chat and get somebody else's point of view, that just like anything, somebody else thinks differently about it, then I could be like, well, that's probably a better idea of how I was actually handling it. So maybe I should appropriate, certain things a little bit differently, right? Like if like me, I staked 100%, right? And I watched the rise all the way to 50 some odd cents, and I didn't EES any of my stakes. And man, I'll tell you what, psychologically, you think it would have just been like fuck, for me, but it didn't. It really didn't do that to me, and I would imagine it did do that to a lot of people. But when I make my decisions, I have to be okay with what I've done regardless of what happens in the future, because I just don't know. I didn't know then, and it's unfortunate or fortunate that I did what I did. And then, whenever those stakes get to a position where, let's say we're higher than 50 cents, then who's wrong, right? Now, how's the psychology going to go? I didn't know back when I made all the stakes and went 100% stake back then, that this other opportunity of 50 some odd cents would exist. There's a lot of moon math. That's a lot of moon boys that say a lot of stuff, but that didn't really matter to me. the suggestion of, we have to have more participation. As long as I see more participation coming into the fold, then I'm good with it, right? And that's what I saw. I saw go from 10,000 to 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 all the way to 300,000 people.
You know how we were talking about PulseX and Uniswap v3 yesterday, how they were working on the AMA to when Pulse is out, you've got when you change your RPC setting and bang, it's adjusted the ratios for you. So you've got your Pulse there adjusted with the supply already done. Is that what they were trying to work out? That it just copied it over and then adjusted your copies if you were providing an LP, or
Are you asking if they've changed it since the merge, like whether it's going to be a 10,000?
Basically, the Chinese did Ethereum did a copy in like about 5 hours, and so Richard Hart's said that he's doing this, and the front end's going to be like copied instantly. So what is Richard Hart doing in PulseX that's different?
Well, I mean, let's say that you're these Chinese folks, and you don't care whether you're fucking with other people's money, and you don't care whether there's bugs or things that you could investigate and find out whether the chain's going to be legitimately have longevity in it or not. You don't care to add any benefit, anything added to it. You're just going to take other people's work and appropriate it as your own, regardless of all the fuck ups and any other thing that may happen. Maybe you'd have zero development for it, who knows? And then they just decided in 5 hours that they were going to say fuck everybody's money and fuck all the risk and all the other stuff and fuck you, and we're just going to do this anyway. And then they do, and in the end result, who knows what may happen from that. Maybe Richard Hart is a lot smarter than that, does care about people's money, does want to make sure that what he has lasts for a very long time. And when they get into the nitty gritty of the code and the stuff that's currently there that could have been forked over and maybe even handled in the merge or not handled in the merge, that things changed, and he wants to make sure that those things are going to be legitimate. So he's taking his time and he's making sure that he's doing the right things, is what my assumption would be, other than just waiting for a timeline to drop the thing on people because the bear market's over or some shit like this. I would have to assume that they're actually building more stuff, so it's not just a copy of a copy of a copy. It's something actually new.
So, but like taking the Uniswap v3 when it becomes open source in April 23, let's just say it's April 2023 sometime, that he would obviously be waiting for that to be able to incorporate all the v3 without an AMA, or the bot's only adjusting it for his Pulse side, or...
Oh, sure. Yeah. Like having the understanding that like it's a little more complicated than just forking everything, like not forking everything, but copying all the liquidity that's there and then changing the ratios, and then realizing, oh shit, it's not so easy to do that with the V3 version because people could actually game that. Like I can go put hex at like $1,000 per hex way up here, where even when you go look at the liquidity, you don't even see it because it doesn't register it. But then it gets copied over at 10,000, and then I'm able to go make a front end on Uniswap and extract all that pulse out of there that it would have given me, because the AMM bot wouldn't have known any different. It would have done it right at that value, given me $1,000 per hex worth of pulse, whatever that ratio would have been. And let's say I had like 10,000 hex just sitting there at $1,000 a piece that nobody's going to come and buy, but this AMM bot ain't going to be the wiser of it. It's just going to give me pulse per $1,000 per hex that's at that particular range, and I could game that against it. And they go, oh shit, well we can't do that, so we're gonna have to make sure that we're paying more attention to these things. And V3 is kind of complicated when it comes to those things and can cause for these things to happen. So we need to maybe figure out how to not make that happen. Let's be a little bit more concise on how we make sure that people can't game those things ahead of time. Because my team of guys were already on that front. They're like, why don't we just go make liquidity positions way up here, and then we'll just trick that bot into giving us free money. Right? It'll take $1,000 and make 20 grand out of it or some shit, 70 grand out of it or some shit potentially. I'm pretty sure that if we came up to that conclusion the day that it was announced that these things were going to happen back months ago, a year ago, that they already got onto that. They already sussed all that shit out already. Also, like if they had such a big issue with it, like you know how like ETH Fair and ETH POW came out and Alex was just like, here, forked front end, you guys can deal with your Uniswap liquidity, da 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 da. I suppose that they could red flag all of the addresses that are smart contracts that are in the Uniswap protocols and say that they're not allowed to be forked over. So we'll go ahead and we'll take the liquidity on how we want under our parameters and put it into the DEX and make sure that even if Uniswap wanted to come over, they'd have to reappropriate all new contracts to be able to come over with it. So they'd actually have to do some work to come onto Pulse Chain. And it wouldn't be available to even be copied, even if the license agreement was up in October or March, February, April, whenever the hell it actually is. They can do all of those things if they wanted to. I'm not saying that they will. I haven't seen anything that would suggest that that's what was going to happen, but I don't think that any of us have enough data to be able to make a whole lot of decisions. I'm just saying that they could if they wanted to. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to make a really good product, probably not best case scenario to only spend 5 hours on it and send it out. Test it, make new stuff, make it different, make sure that the stuff that you changed isn't going to cause like erroneous other things to happen where you get a bug that causes another bug and it's just this downward spiral of buggy shit that happens, and then fix it until now this new thing that you wanted to have happen actually works, and then test the fucking living daylights out of it. So the more time that we have for them to be able to do all that stuff before launch, where they can actually fix the things and test it and fix it and test it and fix it and test it, then we have probably a higher availability of having newer, greater, better things maybe, or maybe not even greater or better, just newer things, right? Just that's it, right?
I think
Which would be
every line of code needs to make sure it earns its keep. Like the hex code was written in the fewest number of lines as possible, right? For that reason.
Do you see when Pulse is out and obviously it becomes like the popular chain where the community might have more liquidity on Pulse now rather than Ethereum? It's going to become like the ETHW chain when people say there's less liquidity a bit. Like I can see. I don't think that the liquidity can be there in both places. It's either going to be one place more than the other.
Forks, ETH Fair, and POW are gonna basically get drained right when Pulse Chains launch.
No,
That's what I was thinking.
I'm not saying that. Well, people might try and sell what they can to get to buy Hex because it's going to get copied, but eventually it will go back up. But what I'm saying is that the liquidity there'll be one chain that has the most liquidity versus the rest, and so the Ethereum one now might be drained a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, if people have more value for Pulse Chain, then yeah, that would probably be down, my mentality of thought would probably go down that road. Like that people are going to remove their liquidity on the Ethereum network and appropriate it over to Pulse.
And people were saying like, oh, the proof of work chain's nothing, but soon it's going to be this one in terms of our community because it's going to favor that the liquidity on the Pulse side chain.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of those things will probably be something that you'd like on the daily you'd be paying attention to. Like when bridges come out and people that actually get paychecks, like are they investing in which chain is garnering not just the liquidity and the volume, but which chain is actually garnering people to come to that one instead of Like if I just swapped over and everyone else just swapped over instead of DCing into Ethereum, because that's the only one we have, they start DCing and on ramping their money directly into Pulse Chain and not even dealing with anything to do with Ethereum at all, and seeing those types of things happen, then you're going to have higher volumes, higher liquidity, higher usage, more support, and all sorts of stuff for Pulse Chain, regardless. I mean, eventually, like, the dust is going to settle after Pulse Chain comes out and people decide which side of the fence that they want to go on, or if they want to stay on both sides of the fence or whatever, no matter what their choices are. Eventually, it's going to die down. But then after that, or maybe even during that process, the process of people bringing in money and choosing which chain that they actually want to go towards and actually support, then it's kind of like a consensus thing through the community. Which one is actually going to be the one that thrives? Sometimes you don't need to like have the support of the entire community of the Ethereum network. Sometimes you just need enough support for any network. Like, look at all the other L1 chains that launched empty. They got some sort of support and they did pretty freaking well, right? Like, they did pretty well. So we'll just have to see how it works out. Especially if they did something that was like different than all the other ones. Like, the only way that you can participate with this other thing that's now there with how the L1 operates might be like more juicy, more speculative, more opportunity than any of the other ones that are out there. Like, it's probably going to garner some support from people that you wouldn't even expect to do it, right? When they learn about it, like, oh shit, I can do this over here and it makes things easier. Like, my onboarding experience can be a lot easier. Like, I don't know. We'll have to see. Like, we know the problems. We know like a lot of the majority of the problems that crypto has, and like where there's a limited, you know, a limited entry, like, you know, your education may need to be pretty high to make sure that you're safe, like security and things like this. There may be like quite a significant amount of stuff that you need to learn to be able to get in. And so like onboarding people like may be pretty tough on certain chains. And then figuring out how to get your money back off might like, oh, it takes 3 days for them to be able to get my money back. Like, I don't like that. Well, what about this other chain that maybe do instant transfers and it's immediately there, kind of like how Coinbase does now, right? You know, that might incentivize people to be able to get in and out and do all the things on this other chain and be like, fuck this other one that I'm on. I ain't waiting 6 hours. I'm impatient. That may be the winnings, the one key initial winning thing. It could be something minor like that. It doesn't exactly have to be so drastic and intuitive even. It could be just a minor thing that people find as an inconvenience, and now it doesn't need to be that way, so they come over here instead. And the competition might cause for the other chains or new developing things to make their stuff better too, right? So competition's good in a certain way. But just like how Amazon became the winner of the .com era and a couple of other websites and things like this that are huge, like, I have a feeling crypto is going to kind of go through the same thing over the next 10, 15 years, where you shoot your shot and you hope that you're the one that has the better marketing and the better community and the better availability to keep retention with your people. You know, eventually it may just be one, you know, like Highlander. And then again, I'll say this again, we'll just have to wait and see. And anybody that says that they know absolutely definitively that this is the way that everything's going to happen, then I wouldn't listen to those people. Hype is cool, but lying to people is not. It'd be really cool if ETH Fair and ETH POW and ETH POS and they all just take off. Like somehow they just get some support and they have tons of liquidity and like now all of a sudden any amount of assets that you were currently speculating on like threefold just triple and you're just kind of like holy shit. That'd be neat. But I can't see
I,
how.
I, I do see that happening in the Ethereum work 101, one of them perhaps one day, especially if the Ethereum network with gas becomes higher. And then people kind of like integrate into that one a little bit more.
The same reason why we'd see Pulse Chain actually gaining more and more adoption as well. So I can see your point on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ethereum at the moment, the merge is not a competition for Pulse at the moment because Richard Hart is changing its capacity with gas and stuff like that. That's cool, but the competition now comes into play with those Ethereum work ones a little bit because they are low gas as well.
But wouldn't you agree,
yeah,
that even on those like the POW chain, that if it was to gain adoption, let's say equivalent to Ethereum, and the cost of the ETH POW network token that's there, it'll rise in price, and therefore probably everything else that's attached to it through liquidity pairs will rise too.
it's pretty good. Like it's pretty cool. Like I was playing around on their Premier decks, and I had just like I had about 385 US in there because I put it in, and then I was buying Ethereum Hex W, and I was earning about $20 a day off $400.
Well, any network,
and it was pretty fun. And like the API was like 600%, and I would every second on the screen like money would appear. That token's still done well, and I since decided to pull it out to kind of like buy more Hex W and then mint a lot of Zen tokens with gas, a lot of them, and then cool. But it's going to be cool on PulseX when you do have that happening, like with high APIs at the start on another token, and then the DEX becomes quite the most popular thing, the platform at the moment, because there's only one starting off.
But I even see POW network, if it was to take off and have millions of transactions a day and lots of people bringing volume across it, that even those cheap ass fees that you have now are going to have the same problem. It's going to get more and more expensive. All networks have this same problem. All of them. As you get more adoption and you have more throughput and more people operating on that thing, then the fees will get expensive. It makes sense to me that right now, that on the POW and the ETH Fair network, that the gas costs are cheap because ain't nobody really on those networks. There's a few people. You can argue with me on that. Yes, there's a few people, but nothing like the Ethereum network. The Ethereum network is a really good example of how over a certain period of time of adoption, that every single L1 network is going to have this same thing happen, where even their fees get what you would consider technically expensive. Now, if you currently right now through a trade like on BSC or something like that, it costs you a couple pennies to move it at 0.000 BNB to be able to make a transaction, or ETF or ETH POW, it costs you a couple pennies. That if it costs you $1 as opposed to a fraction of a penny, then technically it is expensive at that point. And during the high throughput points in time of, I don't know, the United States time in the evenings where people are getting off work, and that's generally where the gas rates and the GUE exceed normal prices, then you're going to have expensive, even higher, $10, $15 to do a trade, even on those networks too, eventually. As long as they're more and more successful, they're going to have the same issue. Now, if Richard and his team are able to somehow, which none of and no network has been able to figure out how to do this, if they're somehow able to scale it in a way where those types of things don't happen, and it only incentivizes the miners or the nodes that are validating the things and not really anybody else, and it extracts value out through gas fees, then that would be kind of that would be a cool thing. But like, I would have to assume that even on Pulse Chain, that over a large amount of adoption, a lot of network activity, that even it's going to get expensive too over a certain period of time. As long as it's successful, then that'll be the case. I just don't know how you get around it. Maybe sharding does have to exist. Which it just simply doesn't. Not right now.
No one said this, but if you go to Hedron Etherscan, you can see the addresses. So there is liquid Hedron out there that's just sitting there, I would say, to purchase some of these HSIs in the first instance. Because why aren't some of these people staking it? By using it, it's just sitting there for them to be able to use in these HSIs that are coming up.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have a clue.